Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you guys today about my MALS journey from start to finish to, all that fun stuff. So, I don't know exactly when my actual MALS symptoms started. Back in like 2015, I started having nausea every morning that would kind of last about through half of the day, and then it kind of faded off. And that went on until about my surgery, so I don't know if that's related or not. But another thing is, starting in like January-ish, I started having some noticeable stomach problems. I was just in pain and really nauseous a lot. In February, we started going to quite a few doctors, and they all had their different, as my mom says, their favorite diagnosis to use. Some people thought I had irritable bowel syndrome. Some people thought I had an inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. A lot of them just thought I was just constipated. And the frustrating thing with a lot of those is that I wasn't having any like stool related symptoms. I was just really nauseous and a lot of pain. But that was just their go-to diagnosis, I guess. I don't know. But I got scoped and I was given different meds and stuff, and the pain kind of faded in and out over like months and weeks and stuff. And so we kind of shrugged it off since no one could figure it out. We figured there's nothing crazy bad happening, so I guess we'll just have to live with it. And it kind of faded off a little bit until June or July-ish. I was really stuck in bed a lot. It limited a lot of like things I was able to do, and pretty much that entire summer I was in bed a lot and just kind of sick, I guess. Come August, it was a little too much to just shrug off again. I had similar symptoms as I did in January, February, but they were stronger and very prominent. So we started going to doctors again, and I got a lot of different answers. Once again, I was told, well, maybe you're constipated. I don't know why that's like everyone's favorite diagnosis. But it started to get pretty bad. I started to lose quite a bit of weight. I took a CNA course that I promise you I would have canceled and rescheduled or something before then, but it cost me $500 and I scheduled it months in advance, and I didn't know I was going to be so sick. But when I was taking it, I started to get really scared about my health. Like, I started to think that I was dying even. That month, I lost 20 pounds. And during that CNA class, I lost at least a pound a day. And the ironic thing is, with taking the CNA course, is that you are taught signs and symptoms of, like, severe things. You're taught about signs of pain. You're taught about, like, blood pressure. And people would take my blood pressure, and it would be extremely low. And it would kind of freak them out, but everyone wanted to take my blood pressure because it was like, ooh, let's see what it sounds like for low blood pressure. When people would do pulse and respirations, they'd be like, oh my goodness, you breathe like really shallow breaths a lot. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And I remember someone said that to me, and I looked down on my notes, and it said, in quotations, short, shallow breaths can be a sign of pain. And I just remember thinking to myself, yep. Anyways, so I started blacking out a lot. You know how sometimes when you stand up too quickly, your vision kind of and just kind of is black? I don't know. I started having that just from like slouching to sitting up, or just from stretching, or even just moving too fast. So it happened all the time with pretty much any movement. I would black out. And I remember once during clinicals for this class, I was walking down the hallway and I started to black out. And all of my vision went away and all of my feeling went away, and I was completely numb. Right before I went numb, I reached the wall, found the rail, dug my elbow into it, and just kind of collapsed. And I remember just hearing people walk back and forth, and that was when I really started to get scared. We called my GI almost every day saying, hey, she's really having issues, hey, she's really having issues. And he would prescribe these crazy strong pain meds and be like, there, no, don't bug me. And it was like, okay, that's great, but I'm still having issues. Finally, we went to the ER, and a lot of wacky stuff happened there, but it finally convinced him to admit me. And originally the plan was to give me a feeding tube, just for like the week, and then they would take it out and it would be like my health boost. The plan was we'd stop bothering my GI after that, apparently. But when we got there, it started to become really prevalent that I was in really bad shape. They wanted to draw some blood when I first was admitted, and it took them 20 minutes because I was so dehydrated that I just wouldn't bleed. And I had 2 nurses and like 4 hot packs all down my arm, and they were just rubbing my arm. And it took 20 minutes to get 2 little vials of blood. So that's when people started to kind of like be more cautious with me and like take me more seriously. I also, after the feeding tube was placed, I went into refeeding syndrome, which is what happens when your body doesn't get nutrients for so long that once it's reintroduced, it goes into shock and pretty much your heart can like stop randomly. So from then on out, my nurse had to take my vitals instead of the CNA. And she freaked out at first when she saw how low my blood pressure was. It took me like 5 minutes to tell her that that's a normal thing for me, because they were going to put me in the cardiac unit, and like, yeah, everyone was freaking out and it was kind of funny. Also, the doctor on the floor, after like reading over my records and just examining me in person, he was like, you know, if you had come in here 2 days later, you probably wouldn't have made it. I was that food deprived, I was that everything. And I was like, yeah, I knew I was in bad shape. Someone's finally believing me. While we were there, we did several tests, like tons and tons of tests. And it was really, really frustrating when you're looking for something to be wrong so that you can figure out what is going on and everything comes back as normal. Like, a lot of people would be like, how relieving that everything's coming back normal. But honestly, you're looking for something to come back wrong so that you can fix it and have no more problems. So everything came back kind of upset, but not enough to worry about. So my liver was kind of sensitive and inflamed. My pancreas was kind of upset and inflamed. My stomach was kind of upset and inflamed. But all of them weren't like bad enough to really worry about. Then they did a test that showed my gallbladder was kind of slacking, and my doctor was like, aha, there! We'll do surgery and take out your gallbladder and you'll be good. And so we went to a surgeon to consult about it, and he was like, you know, this isn't actually that bad for someone your age. I don't think this is what's actually wrong. You should get a second opinion. And I'm thinking it's more like a 20-second opinion. But we went to this other guy who was telling us how if it's not constipation, then I'm just anxious and it's all in my head. And it was really frustrating because he was practically saying, if it's not my easy answer, if it's not what I hope it is, if it's not a quick fix, then it's you. You're crazy. You caused all of this chaos all in your mind, and it's just in your mind. And he said, if laxatives don't work, then go take a yoga class and talk to a therapist. And I understand that people do have legitimate anxiety, but when I am having severe pain and have talked to several doctors who have seen results of that pain and know that it's real but not know what it is, it's really frustrating to be told, oh no, it's just in your head. So the plans changed. I ended up coming home with the feeding tube and not really know what to do after that. My GI kept on saying, I honestly have no clue what's wrong with you. There is something wrong with you, but we don't know what it is. So finally, come September, he said, you know, I've got this doctor friend who diagnoses really weird, out there kind of stuff, and maybe he can figure you out. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll take whatever I can get. So we went there, and we ended up being at that doctor's office for 2.5 hours. And it was incredible because I was actually correctly diagnosed with 2 different things in that one visit. He diagnosed me with something called POTS and something called MALS. And I have several videos that go into more detail, but POTS was what was causing all the blacking out. Well, that and, you know, starving for about a month. MALS is what was causing my stomach pain and all of those symptoms. Pretty much a really quick recap of what MALS is that there's a ligament cutting off one of the main arteries that brings blood to your whole digestive system. So that's why all of those organs were a little upset, but not enough to really care about. And the ligament is attached to your diaphragm, so that's why I would take really short breaths, because it hurt to breathe. I remember when that one doctor told me I had anxiety and that I probably just should do yoga. One day I woke up and I was like, okay, well, if it is all in my head, perfect. That's an easy fix. I can just convince myself no longer to think that way. And I remember rolling out a yoga mat, like at 5 o'clock in the morning. I downloaded a yoga app that told me how to do yoga. And it started out by saying, lay on your back and take some deep breaths. And I laid on my back, and one deep breath brought me into tears. and I rolled over on my side, curled up in a ball. I was constantly curled up in a ball. And I remember just crying, thinking to myself, how can this be all in my head? So, fast forward to September, hearing a doctor say, oh no, your pain's legit, and yeah, you actually have a problem, and yeah, I can fix it, was the best ever. A lot of my friends were like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you got diagnosed with this, but it was like, no, that's what I've been looking for. And it was such a relief. So that month we went and we got a CT scan and an ultrasound just to see if I qualified for surgery, because that's the only real treatment for MALS. And the qualification is if your artery is 70% blocked when you exhale. And it doesn't really matter about when you inhale. And so we had the follow-up appointment, and he said, you know, this is actually the worst case I've ever seen. And he kind of got all giddy about it because he was like a nerdy doctor. I was 70% compressed when I was inhaling, which is at your best point, and in his words, 99% compressed when I was exhaling. So he said, I dare say 100 because it literally looks completely closed, but I don't know if that's possible, so we'll just say 99. So needless to say, I definitely qualified for surgery. Usually it takes 6 months to schedule the surgery. There's not a lot of doctors in the country that know about it or do the surgery. And you have to fight your insurance to actually get it paid for and stuff. But at the time we didn't have any insurance, and my parents were really pushy to get it over with, which of course I was really happy about. So we ended up scheduling the surgery a little over 2 weeks later. And we flew out to LA, and I have a video all about that in detail. Pretty much I just had my surgery, and I got my feeding tube removed, and the next day I was eating just fine, and it was so incredible and rewarding to be able to eat and not have your body punish you for eating, which is so weird to most people. I was like, Mom, this is how you feel all the time? And she's like, yeah. It was incredible just to be able to eat and not like suffer for it for days. So 3 weeks after my surgery, I was working out. Come November, I had Thanksgiving with my family. Come December, I had Christmas. The only thing we ever really focused on after that point was my POTS, which is a chronic and can be lifelong, so it's kind of just how things are now. Come January, I started to feel hungry. And that doesn't sound like a big deal to most people, but for someone who has had nausea for years, who's been in pain for a long, long time, eating itself would be a huge struggle. And now not only am I eating, but I'm actually like hungry. I'm actually craving food. It was incredible. And then come February, I turned 18, and February was originally my goal to have surgery, was by February, by my birthday. And instead, come February, not only had I had my surgery, not only was I working out, not only did I apply for a job, I wasn't like, MALS is history now, really, which is incredible because for the longest time I thought that I was just broken for life, and now it's not even something I think about every day. So that is my story. I hope it helps anyone who is either just diagnosed or looking for a diagnosis. MALS is a pain. It's awful, and if you're fighting it, I hope that you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that one day you will taste freedom, literally. Anyways, that is my story. I hope it helped you guys, and I hope you stay tuned for other videos. Bye!